Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and unknowingly holding a piece of American history that collectors have been quietly chasing for decades. It looks ordinary, it feels ordinary, but the truth behind this small copper coin might surprise you more than you expect. Today, we're talking about the 1973 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that millions of Americans have seen, yet very few truly understand. At first glance, it seems like just another everyday coin from the early 1970s. But once you dig deeper, you'll discover that this humble penny carries a story shaped by history, craftsmanship, and hidden value that continues to intrigue collectors even today. The 1973 Lincoln penny was part of a long-running series that began in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By 1973, the United States Mint had already been producing Lincoln cents for over 6 decades. These coins were made to serve a simple purpose: everyday transactions. But behind that simplicity lies a rich timeline of American history. The early 1970s were a time of economic shifts, rising inflation, and changes in the cost of materials. Yet, unlike some earlier years, the composition of the penny in 1973 remained traditional, made mostly of copper. Now, when we say no mint mark, it doesn't mean the coin is missing something by mistake. In fact, it tells you exactly where the coin was made. A 1973 penny without a mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which for many years did not include a mint mark on its coins. This small detail is often overlooked, but it plays a key role in understanding the coin's origin. Let's take a closer look at the design. On the front, you'll see the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, facing to the right. This design was created by Victor David Brenner and has remained one of the most recognized coin designs in American history. Above Lincoln's head, you'll find the word Liberty, and to the right, the year 1973. Just above that is the phrase, "In God We Trust." On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959, with the words United States of America and 1 cent. If you look very closely, you can even spot a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, a detail many people never notice. The coin's composition is another important feature. The 1973 penny is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This gives it that classic reddish-brown color that many collectors love. It also means the coin has a certain weight and feel that later pennies, especially those made after 1982, simply don't have. This older copper composition adds to its appeal, especially for collectors who prefer traditional coinage. Now, you might be wondering, if millions of these coins were made, what makes any of them valuable? That's where things get interesting. While the standard 1973 no mint mark penny is common, certain versions of this coin can be surprisingly valuable due to condition, errors, and unique characteristics. Condition plays a huge role in value. Most pennies from 1973 were heavily circulated, meaning they passed through countless hands over the years. These coins often show wear, scratches, and discoloration. But if you happen to find one in mint condition, meaning it looks almost brand new with sharp details and original shine, its value can increase significantly. Collectors are always searching for coins that have been preserved in near-perfect condition. Then there are mint errors, and this is where the real excitement begins. Some 1973 pennies were struck with errors that make them rare and desirable. For example, double die errors can cause the text or design to appear slightly duplicated. Off-center strikes can leave part of the design missing. There are also coins with clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is missing due to a mistake during the cutting process. These errors turn an ordinary penny into something unique, and collectors are willing to pay a premium for that uniqueness in terms of real value. Most circulated 1973 no mint mark pennies are worth just a few cents. However, uncirculated examples can range from a few dollars to much higher, depending on quality. Some high-grade coins have sold for over $100, especially when certified by professional grading services. Error coins can go even further, with certain rare examples reaching hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. It all depends on the rarity and condition of the specific coin. So, how can you tell if your 1973 penny is worth more than face value? Start by examining the coin carefully. Look at the surface for any unusual features, such as doubling in the letters or numbers. Check if the design is centered properly. Pay attention to the color and shine. A bright, original luster is often a sign that the coin has not been heavily circulated. You can also use a magnifying glass to inspect the finer details. Another important step is to verify authenticity. While it's rare for someone to fake a common penny, valuable error coins can sometimes attract counterfeits. One simple method is to check the weight. A genuine 1973 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it feels too light or too heavy, that could be a red flag. For high-value coins, professional grading services are the best way to confirm authenticity and determine value. There are also some fun and surprising facts about the 1973 penny. For example, billions of pennies were produced that year, making it one of the more common coins in circulation. Yet, despite its high mintage, finding one in perfect condition today is surprisingly difficult. Another interesting detail is that many people overlook these coins entirely, often tossing them into jars or leaving them forgotten in drawers. This means that valuable pieces could still be hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Collectors love the 1973 no-mint mark penny not because it is extremely rare, but because it represents a connection to a specific moment in time. It's a piece of everyday history that reflects the economy, technology, and culture of early 1970s America. For some, it's about completing a collection. For others, it's about the thrill of the hunt, searching through rolls of pennies in hopes of finding that one special coin. There's also a sense of nostalgia attached to these coins. They remind people of a time when pennies had more purchasing power, when everyday transactions felt different, and when even the smallest coin carried a sense of importance. Holding a 1973 penny can feel like holding a small piece of the past, a reminder of how much has changed over the years. And here's something that makes this coin even more fascinating. While many collectors focus on rare and expensive coins, the 1973 penny shows that value isn't always about rarity alone. Sometimes it's about the story, the condition, and the hidden details that most people never notice. It's about seeing something ordinary in an extraordinary way. As you go through your own coins, take a closer look at those old pennies. That small copper coin you've ignored for years might have more to offer than you think. Whether it's a high-grade example, a rare error, or simply a well-preserved piece of history, the 1973 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny has a quiet charm that continues to capture the attention of collectors around the world. So the next time you come across a penny, don't just spend it without a second thought. Take a moment, examine it, and consider the journey it has taken over the decades. Because sometimes, the smallest coins hold the biggest surprises, and your next discovery might be closer than you ever imagined. Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a simple penny, only to discover that this tiny coin could be worth far more than 1 cent. It sounds unbelievable, but for some collectors, the 1979 D. Lincoln penny has become a small piece of history hiding in plain sight. The 1979 D. Mint Mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced in the United States and struck at the Denver Mint. At first glance, it looks just like any other penny you might find in loose change. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But as with many coins, the real story is not just what you see, but what lies beneath the surface. To understand this coin, we need to go back to the late 1970s. America was going through a period of economic change. Inflation had risen, and the cost of producing coins was becoming a concern. The Lincoln cent, which had been introduced back in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, continued to be one of the most widely used coins in circulation. By 1979, billions of pennies were being minted each year to keep up with demand. The Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark on the coin, was responsible for producing a large portion of these pennies. In 1979 alone, over 4 billion Lincoln cents were struck in Denver. That number might make it sound like this coin is extremely common, and in many ways it is. But within such massive production runs, small differences, errors, and conditions can turn an ordinary coin into something collectors are eager to find. The design of the 1979 D penny follows the classic Lincoln cent style. On the front, also known as the obverse, you see Abraham Lincoln's profile facing right. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right is the year 1979. Just below the date, you'll find the small D mint mark, indicating it was made in Denver. The phrase "In God We Trust" arches across the top. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly in the center. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail many people miss. The words United States of America and E pluribus unum appear above, while 1 cent is displayed at the bottom. In terms of composition, the 1979 D penny is made primarily of copper, about 95%, with a small amount of zinc. This gives it that familiar reddish-brown color when new. Over time, exposure to air and handling can change its appearance, turning it into a darker brown shade. Collectors often classify these coins as red, red-brown, or brown depending on how much original color remains, and this can significantly affect their value. Now, here's where things get interesting. Even though billions were made, not all 1979 D pennies are equal. Some coins were struck with minor errors during the minting process. These errors can include off-center strikes, doubled letters or numbers, or slight misalignments. While most of these errors are subtle, they can make a coin far more desirable to collectors. Another factor that can increase value is condition. Coins that have never been used in circulation, known as uncirculated coins, are much rarer than worn ones. A 1979 D penny in average circulated condition might only be worth its face value. But if you find one in near-perfect condition, with sharp details and original red color, its value can rise significantly. Professional grading services use a scale to measure a coin's condition, with higher grades indicating better preservation. A 1979 D penny graded at the very top of the scale, such as mint state 65 or higher, can sell for much more than you might expect. In some cases, these coins have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on their quality and eye appeal. There have also been reports of exceptional examples reaching even higher prices in auctions, especially if they combine high grade with unique characteristics. While these are not common, they prove that even a coin produced in the billions can have hidden gems among them. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1979 D penny? First, check the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin for the small D. This confirms it was minted in Denver. Next, examine the coin's condition. Is the surface smooth and shiny, or is it worn and dull? Are the details of Lincoln's face and the Lincoln Memorial still sharp? You'll also want to look for any unusual features. Use a magnifying glass if possible and inspect the lettering and numbers. Look for doubling where letters appear slightly duplicated, or for areas where the design seems off-center. While not every odd-looking coin is valuable, these small differences are exactly what collectors look for. Another important step is to compare your coin to known examples. Reliable coin guides and online resources can help you see what high-grade or error coins look like. If you believe you have something special, you might consider having it evaluated by a professional coin grading service. This can confirm its authenticity and assign it a grade, which often increases buyer confidence. One common concern is the possibility of fake coins. Fortunately, counterfeit 1979 D pennies are not very common because the coin itself is not extremely rare. However, it's still important to be cautious. Genuine coins will have consistent weight, about 3.11 grams, and a solid feel. The details should be crisp, not blurry or uneven. If something feels off, it's worth taking a closer look or consulting an expert. Here's a fun detail many people don't realize. Because the Lincoln Memorial is shown on the back, and Lincoln's portrait is on the front, the Lincoln cent is one of the few coins in the world to feature the same person on both sides. It's a subtle design choice that adds a unique touch to this already iconic coin. Another interesting fact is that the late 1970s were just a few years before a major change in penny composition. By 1982, the U.S. Mint switched from mostly copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating to reduce costs. That means the 1979 D penny is part of the last era of traditional copper pennies, which makes it more appealing to collectors who appreciate that classic composition. Collectors today love the 1979 D penny for several reasons. It represents a time when coins were still made with a higher copper content. It also offers the excitement of searching through common coins for rare variations and high-grade examples. For many people, it's not just about the money, but the thrill of discovery. There's something special about knowing that a coin you might overlook could actually hold hidden value. It turns everyday pocket change into a kind of treasure hunt. And because the 1979 D penny is still relatively easy to find, it gives beginners a chance to enter the world of coin collecting without needing a large investment. Over the years, countless collectors have shared stories of finding valuable coins in jars, drawers, or even in circulation. While not every 1979 D penny will be worth more than 1 cent, the possibility is always there. And that possibility is what keeps collectors searching. As you go through your own coins, take a closer look at the details. Notice the texture, the shine, and the tiny features that most people ignore. Each coin has a story, and sometimes, that story can be worth far more than its face value in the end. The 1979 D Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how something small and ordinary can carry hidden significance. It's a reminder that history is all around us, often in the most unexpected places. So the next time you see a penny, don't just pass it by. Take a moment to look closer, because you never know that one small coin could be the start of a fascinating journey into the world of rare and valuable treasures. Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and discovering it might be worth far more than just 1 cent. Not because it's ancient, not because it's gold, but because of a small detail most people never notice. Today, we're talking about the 1985 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of people have seen, but very few truly understand. At first glance, the 1985 D Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. It's a small copper-colored coin featuring the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front. On the reverse, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design that many Americans grew up recognizing instantly. The D Mint mark, located just below the date, tells us this coin was produced at the Denver Mint. Billions of pennies were made that year, so it might seem impossible that any of them could be valuable. But as you'll soon discover, the story is much deeper than it appears. To understand this coin, we need to go back to the mid-1980s. The United States Mint was producing pennies in massive quantities to meet everyday demand. By 1985, the penny had already gone through a major change just a few years earlier. Before 1982, pennies were made mostly of copper. But rising copper prices forced the mint to switch to a cheaper composition. So the 1985 penny is actually made of zinc, with a thin copper coating on the outside. This change may seem small, but it plays a big role in how these coins age and how collectors evaluate them today. The design of the 1985 D penny follows a long tradition. The obverse, or front, features Abraham Lincoln, a design first introduced in 1909 to honor his 100th birthday. This was the first time a real person appeared on a circulating U.S. coin, which made it historic from the very beginning. The reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959. If you look very closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, making this one of the few coins in the world to feature the same person on both sides. Now let's talk about what makes the 1985 D penny interesting. Since over 5 billion of these coins were minted in Denver alone, most examples are extremely common. If you find one in your change, it's likely only worth 1 cent. However, condition is everything. Coins that were never circulated, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, can be worth significantly more. These are known as uncirculated coins, and collectors are always searching for the best examples. But condition is only part of the story. The real excitement comes from errors and varieties. During the minting process, mistakes can happen. These mistakes are rare, and when they do occur, they can turn an ordinary penny into something collectors are willing to pay serious money for. One of the most talked about errors for the 1985 D penny is the double die variety. This happens when the design is accidentally stamped twice at slightly different angles, creating a visible doubling effect. On some coins, this can be seen in the lettering or the date. While not extremely common, these coins are highly sought after because they are easy to recognize once you know what to look for. Another interesting error involves off-center strikes. This happens when the coin blank is not properly aligned when it's struck by the dies. The result is a coin where part of the design is missing, and the rest is shifted to one side. The more dramatic the error, the more valuable the coin can be. There are also cases of clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is missing due to a mistake during the cutting process. These coins have a distinctive curved or straight missing section, and they immediately stand out from normal pennies. Now let's talk about value, because this is where things get exciting. A regular 1985 D penny in circulated condition is typically worth just 1 cent. However, in uncirculated condition, especially with a high grade, these coins can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on their quality. But when you add in rare errors or exceptional condition, the price can increase dramatically. For example, a high-grade 1985 D penny with strong luster and no visible marks can sell for tens of dollars. If the coin has a noticeable error like doubling or an off-center strike, the value can jump into the hundreds. There have even been auction sales where exceptional examples fetched impressive prices. Coins graded at the very top of the scale with perfect or near-perfect surfaces can attract serious attention from collectors. These are the kinds of coins that end up in collections, not in circulation. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1985 D penny? The first step is to check the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin. If you see a small D, you know it was minted in Denver. Next, examine the condition. Does the coin still have its original shine, known as luster? Are there scratches, dents, or discoloration? The cleaner and shinier the coin, the better. Then, look closely for errors. Use a magnifying glass if you have one. Check the date and the lettering for any signs of doubling. Look at the edges of the coin to see if anything appears unusual or incomplete. Even a small detail can make a big difference. It's also important to be aware of fakes or altered coins. Some people try to create the appearance of errors by damaging coins or altering them. Genuine errors occur during the minting process and have specific characteristics that are difficult to replicate. If you think you have something valuable, it's always a good idea to have it examined by a professional grading service. Here's something surprising. Even though the 1985 D penny is not considered rare in general, millions of people have unknowingly spent coins that could have been worth much more. That's because most people don't take the time to look closely at their change. Hidden treasures can easily pass through your hands without you ever realizing it. Another fun fact is that zinc pennies like the 1985 D can sometimes develop a condition known as zinc rot. This happens when the copper coating is damaged, exposing the zinc core underneath. Over time, the zinc can corrode, creating bubbles or rough spots on the surface. While this usually decreases value, it also makes these coins unique and tells a story about their journey through circulation. Collectors today love the 1985 D penny for several reasons. First, it's accessible. Almost anyone can find one, which makes it a great starting point for new collectors. Second, it offers the thrill of discovery. Because errors exist, there's always a chance that a simple penny could turn into something special. And finally, it represents a specific moment in American history, a time when the mint was adapting to economic changes and experimenting with new materials. There's also a sense of nostalgia attached to these coins. For many people, pennies from the 1980s bring back memories of childhood, pocket change, and everyday transactions. Holding one of these coins can feel like holding a small piece of the past. As we wrap up, think about this. Somewhere right now, a 1985 D Lincoln penny is sitting unnoticed in a jar, a drawer, or even in someone's pocket. It might look ordinary, just like every other penny. But with the right combination of condition and error, it could be worth far more than its face value. So the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look, because sometimes the smallest coins carry the biggest surprises. Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and discovering it might be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's made of gold, not because it's ancient, but because of a tiny detail most people overlook. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1990 mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary but hides a world of history, mystery, and surprising value. The 1990 Lincoln penny is one of the most common coins you can find in everyday change. Millions of these coins were produced and circulated across the United States. At first glance, there is nothing special about it. It carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been part of American coins since 1909. On the back, it features the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. But what makes this specific version interesting is the absence of a mint mark. A mint mark is a small letter stamped on a coin that tells you where it was made. In 1990, U.S. pennies were produced mainly at 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Denver have a D mint mark, and those from San Francisco often have an S, especially for proof coins. But coins made in Philadelphia, at least for pennies during that time, typically did not carry any mint mark at all. That means a 1990 penny without a mint mark was made in Philadelphia, and on the surface, that seems completely normal. So why are people talking about this coin? Why does it attract attention from collectors and casual viewers alike? The answer lies in the details, the variations, and the occasional rare errors that can turn an ordinary coin into something truly special. To understand this better, let's go back to 1990. The United States Mint was producing billions of pennies every year. These coins were made primarily from a zinc core with a thin copper coating, a composition that had been in use since 1982. Before that, pennies were mostly solid copper, but rising metal costs forced a change. The 1990 penny, like others from that era, weighs about 2.5 grams and has a bright copper appearance when new. The design itself remained consistent. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln's profile facing right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1990 to the right. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands proudly in the center, with United States of America above it and 1 cent below. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny depiction of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, a detail many people miss. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 1990 no-mint mark pennies are extremely common, certain variations and errors can make them valuable. In coin collecting, errors are often what turn everyday coins into prized finds. These errors happen during the minting process and can include things like doubling, misalignment, or missing details. One of the most talked about possibilities for the 1990 penny is the presence of double die errors. This happens when the coin's design is accidentally stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a visible doubling effect. On some coins, you might notice this in the lettering, especially in words like "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." While not all 1990 pennies have this feature, those that do can be worth significantly more than face value. Another type of error that collectors look for is off-center strikes. This occurs when the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. A dramatic off-center strike can make a coin unique and highly collectible. There are also coins with plating errors. Since the 1990 penny is made with a zinc core and copper plating, sometimes the plating can bubble, peel, or appear uneven. While minor imperfections are common, more severe or unusual plating errors can increase a coin's value. So, how much is a 1990 no-mint mark Lincoln penny actually worth? For most coins in average condition, the answer is simple: 1 cent. Even in uncirculated condition, many of these coins are worth only a few cents to $1. But when you start looking at high-grade coins or those with unique errors, the story changes. Coins that have been preserved in near-perfect condition, known as mint state grades, can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on the exact grade. A coin graded MS-67, which is considered very high quality, might sell for $10 to $50 or more. While that may not sound life-changing, it's still a significant increase from 1-cent error coins. However, can reach much higher values. A strong double die or a dramatic minting error can push the value into the hundreds of dollars. There have been cases where collectors paid substantial amounts for rare variations, especially when the error is clearly visible and well-preserved. One important thing to understand is that value depends heavily on condition. 2 identical coins can have very different prices if one is worn and the other looks brand new. Collectors often rely on professional grading services to determine a coin's condition and authenticity. These services assign a grade based on factors like luster, surface marks, and overall appearance. If you're wondering how to identify a genuine 1990 no-mint mark penny, the process is actually quite simple. First, check the date on the front of the coin. It should clearly read 1990. Next, look just below the date. If there is no letter present, then it was minted in Philadelphia. If you see a D, it came from Denver, and if you see an S, it's from San Francisco. Then, take a closer look at the details. Use a magnifying glass if possible. Examine the lettering for any signs of doubling. Look at the edges and surfaces for unusual patterns or errors. Pay attention to the overall condition. A coin that looks shiny and sharp is more likely to have higher value than one that is worn down. It's also important to be cautious about claims of extremely high value. While rare errors do exist, not every 1990 penny without a mint mark is valuable. Many online listings can be misleading, with sellers asking for high prices that don't reflect actual market value. The best way to determine a coin's worth is by comparing it to recent sales and consulting reliable sources. Here's a fun fact that surprises many people. Even though the 1990 penny is relatively modern, it still connects to a long tradition of American coinage that dates back over a century. The Lincoln cent was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, breaking away from earlier designs that used symbolic figures like Lady Liberty. This change marked a new era in American coins, making them more personal and historically meaningful. Another interesting detail is the sheer number of pennies produced each year. In 1990, billions of pennies were minted, making it one of the most widely produced coins in U.S. history. Despite this, the search for rare variations continues to excite collectors. It's like a treasure hunt where the prize could be hiding in plain sight. Collectors love the 1990 no-mint mark Lincoln penny not because it is rare by default, but because it represents possibility. It's a reminder that even the most common objects can hold hidden value. For beginners, it's an accessible entry point into coin collecting. You don't need a large budget or specialized knowledge to start searching. All you need is curiosity and a willingness to look closely. For experienced collectors, this coin offers the thrill of discovery. Finding a high-grade example or a rare error can be incredibly rewarding. It's not just about the money. It's about the story behind the coin, the journey it has taken, and the chance that it might be something special. As you go through your own coins, you might start to see them differently. That jar of loose change on your table, that handful of pennies in your drawer, they're no longer just spare coins. They're pieces of history, each with its own story waiting to be uncovered. And here's the thought that keeps collectors coming back. What if the next penny you pick up is not just another coin? What if it's one of those rare finds? The kind that turns a simple moment into an unforgettable discovery. The 1990 no-mint mark Lincoln penny may seem ordinary, but it carries a quiet mystery. It invites you to look closer, to question what you see, and to explore the hidden world of coin collecting. Because sometimes, the smallest details can make the biggest difference. So the next time you find a penny, don't ignore it. Take a second look, because you never know what story it might be hiding, or what value it might hold. Welcome back. Imagine finding a simple penny in your pocket and discovering it might be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's made of gold, not because it's ancient, but because of a tiny detail most people overlook. Today, we're diving into the story of the 1991 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance but hides a world of history, mystery, and surprising value. The 1991 Lincoln penny is part of one of the longest-running coin series in American history. First introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, the Lincoln cent has been produced for over a century. By 1991, this coin had already gone through decades of changes, economic shifts, and evolving designs, yet it remained one of the most familiar coins in everyday life. Now, when we say no mint mark, many people assume something is missing or wrong. But here's the truth that surprises most beginners. A 1991 penny without a mint mark is actually normal. These coins were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not include a mint mark on pennies for most of its history. So in reality, millions of these coins were made, and they circulated widely across the United States. But here's where things get interesting. While most 1991 no-mint mark pennies are extremely common and only worth face value, certain examples can be surprisingly valuable. And the reason comes down to condition, rarity within condition, and small details that most people never notice. To understand this better, let's go back to 1991. The United States Mint was producing billions of pennies each year to meet demand. These coins were made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating, a composition introduced in 1982 to reduce costs. The 1991 penny weighs about 2.5 grams and has that familiar copper-colored appearance. Even though it's mostly zinc underneath, on the front, you see the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces right, calm and thoughtful, with the word liberty to the left and the year 1991 to the right. Above his head is the motto, "In God We Trust." On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail that fascinates collectors. So what makes one 1991 no-mint mark penny different from another? The answer lies in condition and errors. Let's start with condition. Most pennies from 1991 have been heavily circulated. They've passed through thousands of hands, been dropped, scratched, and worn down over time. These are worth exactly 1 cent. But if you happen to find a 1991 penny that looks almost brand new, with sharp details, bright luster, and no visible wear, you may have something special. Collectors call these coins uncirculated or mint state. The higher the grade, the more valuable the coin becomes. A 1991 no-mint mark penny in average uncirculated condition might be worth a few cents to $1. But in extremely high grades, especially those graded MS-67 or higher by professional grading services, the value can jump significantly. There have been auction examples where high-grade 1991 pennies sold for tens or even over $100, simply because they are so difficult to find in perfect condition. Think about it. Billions were made, but very few survived without any marks or damage. Now let's talk about errors, because this is where things get truly exciting. Mint errors are mistakes that happen during the coin production process. These errors can make a coin unique and sometimes extremely valuable. For the 1991 no-mint mark penny, some known errors include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned on the coin. There are also double die errors, where parts of the design appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. Another type of error to look for is a broad strike, where the coin was struck without the proper collar, causing it to spread out more than usual. There are also die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the surface of the coin due to cracks in the die used to strike it. While these errors are not extremely common, they do exist, and collectors are always searching for them. A 1991 penny with a clear and dramatic error can be worth anywhere from a few dollars to several $100s, depending on the type and visibility of the mistake. You might be wondering, have any of these coins actually sold for real money? The answer is yes. While most 1991 pennies are common, high-grade examples and error coins have appeared in auctions and collector markets. For instance, a near-perfect 1991 penny graded at the top levels can sell for over $100, sometimes more if it has exceptional eye appeal. Error coins, depending on their uniqueness, can fetch even higher prices among collectors who specialize in mint mistakes. But here's an important point. Not every shiny penny is valuable, and not every unusual-looking coin is an error. This is why knowing how to identify a genuine valuable coin is so important. First, check the date carefully. It should clearly read 1991. Next, look for the absence of a mint mark below the date, which indicates it was struck in Philadelphia. Then examine the coin's condition. Are the details sharp? Is the surface smooth and free from scratches? Does it still have its original shine? If you suspect an error, use a magnifying glass to inspect the coin closely. Look for doubling in the letters or numbers, unusual shapes, or misaligned designs. But be careful. Damage caused after the coin left the mint, such as scratches or dents, does not count as a mint error and does not add value. For those who believe they have found something special, the next step is professional grading. Services like PCGS or NGC can authenticate and grade your coin, giving it an official value in the collector market. This can make a huge difference if you decide to sell. Now let's take a moment to look at some fun and surprising details about the 1991 penny. Did you know that even though these coins are copper-colored, they are mostly made of zinc? The copper layer is incredibly thin, which is why damaged pennies sometimes reveal a silver-colored core underneath. Another interesting fact is that pennies cost more to produce than their face value. By the early 1990s, it already cost more than 1 cent to make a penny, which sparked debates that continue even today about whether the penny should still be produced. Also, the Lincoln Memorial on the back of the coin was one of the first times a real person appeared on both sides of a U.S. coin. If you look closely enough, you can see Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, meaning his image appears twice on the same coin. So why do collectors still love the 1991 no-mint mark penny? The answer is simple. It represents a perfect combination of accessibility and potential. Almost anyone can find one of these coins in circulation, which makes the hunt exciting and personal. At the same time, the possibility of discovering a high-grade example or a rare error adds a sense of treasure hunting. For experienced collectors, the challenge lies in finding the best possible condition. For beginners, it's an easy and affordable entry into the world of coin collecting. And for everyone, it's a reminder that even the smallest and most common objects can hold hidden stories and unexpected value. There's also a deeper connection. Coins like the 1991 penny were part of everyday life. They passed through grocery stores, vending machines, and pockets across the country. Each one carries a silent history, a journey that we can only imagine. And that's what makes this coin more than just a piece of metal. It's a snapshot of a moment in time, a piece of American history that you can hold in your hand, so the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date. Examine the details. Because hidden among the billions of ordinary coins, there's always a chance that one of them is not so ordinary after all. And who knows, the next 1991 no-mint mark penny you find might just be the one that turns a single cent into something far more valuable. Welcome back. Imagine finding a single penny in your pocket that looks completely ordinary, but hidden in its tiny details could be a mistake so rare that collectors have paid thousands of dollars for it. Today, we're uncovering the story of the 1992 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that proves even the smallest change can hold a big secret. The 1992 D Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, one of the most recognized coins in American history. First introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, this coin has been produced for generations, passing through countless hands. By 1992, billions of pennies were already in circulation, and most people never thought twice about them. But that year, at the Denver Mint, something unusual happened during production, and it created one of the most talked about modern penny varieties. To understand why this coin matters, we need to go back to how coins are made. Each penny is struck using specially engraved dies that stamp the design onto a blank piece of metal. Even the smallest change in these dies can create a noticeable difference in the final coin. In 1992, the design featured the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, created by Victor David Brenner, and the Lincoln Memorial on the back, designed by Frank Gasparo. At first glance, the coin looked exactly like any other penny from that era. The composition of the 1992 D penny is mostly zinc, with a thin layer of copper on the outside. This change in metal had been introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs. So physically, the coin feels light compared to older copper pennies, and its appearance is a shiny copper color when new. Nothing about the metal or weight seems unusual. The real story lies in the details of the design, especially on the reverse side. If you look closely at the words America on the back of a standard 1992 penny, you'll notice that the letters A and M have a small gap between them. This spacing is normal and expected. But on a rare version of the 1992 D penny, those two letters are much closer together, almost touching. This variety is known among collectors as the close AM variety, and it was never meant to exist on circulation coins that year. Here's why that matters. The close AM design was actually intended for proof coins, which are specially made coins for collectors with sharper details and a different finishing process. Somehow, a proof-style reverse die was used on a small number of regular circulation coins at the Denver Mint. This mix-up created a rare error that slipped into everyday pocket change without anyone noticing at the time. For years, these coins went unnoticed. People spent them, saved them in jars, or ignored them completely. It wasn't until sharp-eyed collectors began comparing details that the difference was discovered. Once word spread, the hunt for the 1992 D close AM penny began, and it quickly became one of the most exciting modern coin discoveries. What makes this coin especially valuable is its rarity. Out of the billions of pennies produced in 1992, only a tiny number are believed to have this close AM feature. Experts estimate that only a handful have been confirmed, making it extremely difficult to find. This scarcity is what drives collectors to search through rolls of pennies, hoping to spot that tiny difference in letter spacing. Over the years, a few examples of the 1992 D close AM penny have appeared in auctions and private sales, and the prices have surprised many people. Depending on the condition of the coin, values can range from several $1,000s to over $20,000 for a high-grade example. Imagine that for a moment. A coin that originally had a value of just 1 cent could be worth more than a brand new car, all because of a small design variation that most people would never notice. Condition plays a major role in determining the value. Coins that are worn from circulation are still valuable if they have the close AM feature, but coins in near-perfect condition can command much higher prices. Collectors look for sharp details, minimal scratches, and original luster when evaluating these coins. The better the condition, the higher the potential value. If you're wondering how to identify a real 1992D close AM penny, the process is simple but requires careful attention. First, look at the reverse side of the coin. Focus on the word America and examine the spacing between the A and the M. On the rare variety, these letters are almost touching, with little to no visible gap. On a normal penny, there will be a clear space between them. Next, check the mint mark. The D mint mark, located below the date on the front of the coin, indicates it was made at the Denver Mint. Without this mint mark, the coin is not part of the rare Denver variety. It's also important to compare your coin with verified images from trusted sources, because small differences can be hard to judge with the naked eye. However, caution is important. Because of the high value of this coin, there have been attempts to alter or fake similar-looking pennies. Some people may try to modify the letters or misrepresent a normal coin as the rare variety. This is why professional authentication is essential if you believe you've found one. Reputable grading services can examine the coin and confirm whether it is genuine. There are also other interesting details about the 1992 penny that make it stand out. For example, this year is known for both the close AM and the more common wide AM varieties. While the close AM is extremely rare for circulation coins, the wide AM is what you'll typically find. This contrast makes the search even more exciting because every penny you check has the potential to be something special. Another surprising fact is that similar close AM varieties exist for other years, but the 1992D version remains one of the most valuable and sought after. This adds to its reputation among collectors as a key modern rarity. It's not just about the money. It's about the thrill of discovery and the idea that such a rare coin could still be hiding in plain sight. Collectors today love the 1992D close AM penny because it represents a perfect combination of mystery, rarity, and accessibility. Unlike ancient coins or expensive gold pieces, this is a coin that could theoretically be found by anyone. It doesn't require a large investment to start searching. All you need is patience, attention to detail, and a bit of luck. The story of this coin also reminds people that mistakes can sometimes create something valuable. What started as a simple production error turned into one of the most exciting finds in modern coin collecting. It shows that even in a system designed for precision, small human or mechanical errors can lead to unexpected treasures. Many collectors enjoy searching through rolls of pennies from banks, hoping to spot rare varieties like this one. It's a hobby that combines history, observation, and the excitement of a treasure hunt. And while the chances of finding a 1992D close AM penny are very low, the possibility is always there, which keeps people searching. As time goes on, these coins are becoming harder to find. Many have already been discovered and placed into collections, reducing the number still in circulation. This increasing scarcity may continue to drive interest and value in the future. For collectors, owning one is like holding a piece of modern minting history, so the next time you come across a handful of pennies, take a closer look. That small coin you might normally ignore could hold a hidden detail that changes everything. The 1992D Lincoln penny is proof that value isn't always obvious, and sometimes the smallest differences can make the biggest impact. And here's the question that keeps collectors awake at night. How many of these rare pennies are still out there, quietly waiting to be discovered in jars, drawers, or loose change? The answer is unknown, and that mystery is what makes this coin so fascinating. Because somewhere, right now, there could be a 1992D close AM penny sitting unnoticed, just waiting for someone curious enough to look a little closer. Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a simple penny, the kind most people ignore. Now imagine that same coin quietly holding a secret that could make it worth far more than 1 cent. Sounds unbelievable, right? But today we're uncovering the truth behind the 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary, yet continues to spark curiosity among collectors everywhere. The 1995 Lincoln penny is one of those coins that millions of people have seen, touched, and spent without a second thought. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back, a design that remained in circulation for decades. When people hear no mint mark, they often assume it means something rare or unusual. But in this case, the story is a little more interesting than that. To understand this coin, we need to go back to 1995. That year, the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies to meet everyday demand. Most of these coins were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not place a mint mark on pennies at that time. That means if you have a 1995 penny with no letter under the date, it simply means it was made in Philadelphia. This wasn't a mistake. It was standard practice. At the same time, other mints like Denver used a D mint mark, and San Francisco used an S for proof coins. So the absence of a mint mark doesn't automatically make the coin rare. In fact, billions of 1995 no-mint mark pennies were produced, making them very common in circulation. But here's where things start to get interesting. Even though the regular version of this coin is common, certain variations and errors from 1995 have captured the attention of collectors. One of the most famous is the 1995 double die obverse. This error shows noticeable doubling in the lettering on the front of the coin, especially in the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." To the untrained eye, it might look like a blurry or worn coin, but to a collector, it can be a hidden treasure. The coin itself is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs. The penny weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge. The front, or obverse, shows Lincoln's profile, a design that has been used since 1909. The back, or reverse, features the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 to 2008. Now let's talk about value, because this is where curiosity turns into excitement. A standard 1995 no-mint mark penny in average circulated condition is usually worth only face value, maybe a few cents at most. But if you find one in excellent condition, especially one that has never been used, it can be worth a bit more, sometimes a few dollars. But the real value comes from those rare error coins. A genuine 1995 double die obverse penny can sell for hundreds of dollars, depending on its condition. Some high-grade examples have even sold for over $1,000 at auction. That's a massive jump from just 1 cent. There have been collectors who discovered these coins in everyday pocket change, coin rolls, or old jars sitting at home. Imagine finding a coin like that without even realizing it. It's stories like these that keep people searching through their spare change, hoping to uncover something valuable. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1995 no-mint mark penny? First, look closely at the front of the coin. Pay attention to the lettering. If you notice clear doubling, especially in Liberty or In God We Trust, you might have something special. The doubling should look strong and distinct, not just like damage or wear. Next, check the condition of the coin. Coins that are shiny, with sharp details and minimal scratches, are usually worth more. These are often referred to as uncirculated coins. Even without errors, a well-preserved coin can still have some collector value. It's also important to be cautious about fakes or misunderstandings. Some coins may appear to have doubling due to wear, damage, or machine doubling, which is different from a true double die. Machine doubling usually looks flat and less defined, while a real double die has a more rounded, separated appearance. If you think you have something valuable, it's always a good idea to have it examined by a professional coin grading service. Here's something many people don't realize. The idea of a no-mint mark coin being rare comes from certain years where a mint mark was expected but missing due to an error. For example, in some cases, coins from mints that normally use a mark were accidentally struck without one. Those can be extremely rare. But in 1995, Philadelphia pennies were not supposed to have a mint mark, so it's completely normal. Still, that doesn't stop the excitement. Coin collecting is as much about the hunt as it is about the value. The possibility that a simple penny could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars keeps people searching. Another interesting detail about the 1995 penny is how it represents a period of modern coin production. By the 1990s, the minting process had become highly efficient, producing coins at an incredible scale. Yet, even with advanced technology, small errors still slip through. These tiny imperfections are what make certain coins stand out and become valuable over time. Collectors today love the 1995 penny not because every coin is rare, but because it reminds them that hidden value can exist in the most ordinary places. It's a perfect example of how something so small and overlooked can still carry history, mystery, and potential. Some collectors focus specifically on error coins, while others enjoy building complete sets of Lincoln pennies from different years and mints. The 1995 no-mint mark penny often becomes part of that journey, especially when paired with its Denver and San Francisco counterparts. There are also stories of people who started collecting coins after discovering something unusual in their change. A single coin can spark a lifelong interest. It can turn an ordinary moment into something memorable. And then there's the thrill of possibility. Every time you receive change, there's a small chance that one of those coins could be special. Most of the time, it won't be. But sometimes, just sometimes, it might be. So the next time you come across a 1995 penny without a mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Examine the details. You might just find something that others have overlooked. Because in the world of coin collecting, value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it hides in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. And that's what makes coins like the 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln penny so fascinating. Not because they're all rare, but because they remind us that even the most ordinary objects can hold extraordinary stories. So now the question is, how many pennies have you passed by without ever taking a second look? What if the small, ordinary penny sitting in your pocket right now could quietly hold a story far bigger than its 1-cent value? A story of history, hidden details, and in some rare cases, surprising worth. Today, we're diving into the 2002 mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin most people overlook, but collectors never ignore. The 2002 Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint in Denver, which is why you'll see the small D mint mark on the front. At first glance, it looks just like any other modern penny. It carries the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Millions of these coins were made, and they still circulate today. But as with many coins in American history, the real story is not just what you see. It's what you might miss. To understand this coin, we have to go back to the early 2000s. The United States was already deep into modern coin production, using advanced technology and large-scale minting processes. By 2002, pennies were no longer made primarily of copper like they were decades earlier. Instead, they were composed mostly of zinc with a thin copper coating. This change had actually happened back in 1982 due to rising copper prices, and by 2002 it was the standard. The Lincoln penny design itself dates all the way back to 1909, when it was first introduced to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. The design on the front, created by Victor David Brenner, remained largely unchanged for decades. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial had been featured since 1959, replacing the earlier wheat-designed SO in 2002. This coin wasn't introducing anything new visually, but that's exactly what makes it interesting. Sometimes the most valuable coins are not the ones that look different at first glance, but the ones that carry subtle variations, minting errors, or unusual conditions. Now let's talk about what makes the 2002 penny unique. First, its composition is about 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper. It weighs approximately 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge. The front shows Lincoln facing right, with the words "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 2002 with the D mint mark to the right on the back. You'll see the Lincoln Memorial, with the words "United States of America" across the top and 1 cent at the bottom. If you look very closely, you can even spot a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail many people never notice. But here's where things start to get interesting. Even though millions of these coins were produced, not all of them are equal. Some 2002 pennies have been discovered with minting errors. These errors can include off-center strikes, double dies, or die cracks. While most pennies are perfectly aligned and cleanly struck, A small number slip through the process with imperfections, and those imperfections can make them far more valuable. For example, a double die error occurs when the design is stamped more than once slightly out of alignment, creating a noticeable doubling effect on letters or numbers. On a 2002 penny, this might appear in the date, the word Liberty, or even Lincoln's profile. To an untrained eye, it might look like a small blur, but to a collector, it can be a sign of rarity. Another type of error is an off-center strike, where the coin design is not properly centered. This can leave part of the coin blank and part of the design missing. Depending on how dramatic the error is, these coins can sell for significantly more than their face value. There are also die cracks, which appear as thin raised lines on the coin surface. These happen when the die used to strike the coin begins to crack after repeated use. While minor cracks are common, larger or unusual ones can make a coin more desirable. Now you might be wondering, how valuable can a 2002 penny really be? In most cases, a regular circulated 2002 penny is still worth just 1 cent. But condition plays a huge role. Coins that have never been used in circulation, known as uncirculated coins, can be worth more, especially if they have a strong, clean strike and a bright, original finish. High-grade examples of the 2002 penny, graded by professional services, have sold for several dollars and sometimes more, depending on their quality. Coins graded MS-65 or higher, which indicates a very well-preserved coin with minimal marks, are especially attractive to collectors. But the real excitement comes with error coins. Some 2002 pennies with noticeable errors have sold for anywhere from $20 to over $100, depending on the rarity and visibility of the mistake. While these are not everyday finds, they do exist, and they are still occasionally discovered in circulation or old coin jars. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 2002 penny? The first step is to check the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin. If you see a small D, that means it was minted in Denver. Next, examine the coin closely under good lighting. Look for anything unusual, such as doubling in the text, misalignment, or strange lines that shouldn't be there. Condition is also key. A coin with sharp details, no major scratches, and a bright surface is more likely to be valuable than one that is worn and damaged. Even small differences in condition can make a big difference in value. It's also important to be aware of cleaning. Many people think cleaning a coin will make it more valuable, but in reality, it often does the opposite. Cleaning can damage the surface and remove the original finish, making the coin less desirable to collectors. As for spotting a fake, the good news is that counterfeit 2002 pennies are extremely rare because the coin itself is not highly valuable in most cases. However, altered coins do exist. Some people may try to add a fake mint mark or modify a coin to make it appear as an error. Always compare your coin to a known genuine example and, if in doubt, consider having it evaluated by a professional grading service. Here's a fun detail that many people don't realize. The Lincoln Memorial on the back of the penny actually shows Lincoln twice. Once on the front of the coin, and once again as a tiny statue inside the memorial. It's one of the few coins in the world where the same person appears on both sides in different forms. Another interesting fact is that pennies are often overlooked in daily life, yet they are one of the most collected coins in the United States. Many collectors started their journey by simply checking their spare change, and coins like the 2002 penny are often part of that beginning. Collectors love this coin not because it is extremely rare, but because it represents the modern era of coin collecting. It's accessible, easy to find, and still holds the possibility of hidden value. It reminds people that you don't need expensive or ancient coins to start collecting. Sometimes, the coins you already have can tell a fascinating story. There's also a sense of connection. Holding a 2002 penny is like holding a small piece of history from the early 21st century. It's a reminder of a time when physical currency was still a major part of everyday life, before digital payments became as dominant as they are today. And perhaps the most exciting part is the mystery. Every time you come across a penny, there's a tiny chance it could be something special. Maybe it has an error. Maybe it's in exceptional condition. Or maybe it's just another coin with a story waiting to be told. So the next time you see a 2002 Lincoln penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Turn it in the light. Check the details. Because hidden within that small piece of metal could be more than just 1 cent. It could be a glimpse into history, a collector's treasure, or the beginning of your own journey into the world of coin collecting. And who knows, the next valuable coin might already be in your pocket, just waiting for you to notice it. Welcome back. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and realizing it might be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's old, not because it's made of gold, but because of a small letter stamped on it, a tiny D, that could turn an ordinary coin into something collectors quietly hunt for. Today, we're talking about the 2006 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like any other modern coin you'd find in your change. But behind that familiar face of Abraham Lincoln is a story of history, hidden details, and surprising value that most people completely overlook. The 2006 Lincoln penny was part of a long-running tradition that began back in 1909, when the United States introduced the first coin to feature a real person. That person, of course, was Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected presidents in American history. By 2006, the Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for nearly a century, becoming one of the most recognized coins in the world. The D Mint mark on this coin tells us something important. It means the coin was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the major facilities responsible for creating billions of coins every year. In 2006, the Denver Mint struck a massive number of these pennies, sending them out across the country to be used in everyday transactions. So on the surface, there's nothing rare about them. Millions were made. They passed through countless hands. Most were spent without a second thought. But as any collector knows, rarity doesn't always come from low production numbers. Sometimes it comes from small details, tiny variations, or mistakes that slipped through unnoticed. If you take a closer look at the 2006 D Lincoln penny, you'll see the familiar portrait of Lincoln on the front, designed by Victor David Brenner. His initials, VDB, can still be found on the coin, a small signature that connects modern pennies to their original designer from over 100 years ago. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. If you look very carefully, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, making him one of the only figures in history to appear twice on the same coin. The coin itself is not made of pure copper, as many people assume. By 2006, pennies were mostly made of zinc, with only a thin copper coating. This change happened decades earlier, in 1982, when rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to switch materials. So while the coin looks like copper, it's actually much lighter and less valuable in raw metal terms. So where does the value come from? This is where things get interesting. While most 2006 D pennies are only worth their face value, certain versions of this coin can be worth much more, especially if they have errors or are in exceptional condition. One of the most talked about possibilities is the presence of minting errors. These can include double dies, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated, creating a shadow-like effect on the letters or numbers. There can also be off-center strikes, where the coin design is not perfectly aligned, or die cracks, which leave unusual lines across the surface of the coin. Even small imperfections can catch the attention of collectors. A tiny doubling in the date, a slight shift in the lettering, or an unusual surface texture can turn an ordinary penny into a collectible piece. Condition also plays a huge role. Coins that have never been used in circulation, known as uncirculated coins, are far more valuable than those that have been worn down over time. A 2006 D penny that still has its original shine with no scratches or damage can be worth significantly more than one that has been in circulation for years. There have been cases where high-grade examples of this coin, especially those graded by professional services, have sold for surprising amounts. While most may only reach a few dollars, the very best examples, with near-perfect surfaces and strong detail, can reach much higher values in the collector market. Some have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on their quality and uniqueness. But here's the important part. Not every 2006 D penny is valuable. In fact, the vast majority are still worth just 1 cent. The challenge, and the excitement, comes from knowing what to look for. If you want to identify a potentially valuable 2006 D penny, start by checking the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin. You should see a small D, indicating it was minted in Denver. If there's no mint mark, it was made in Philadelphia, which is a different version of the coin. Next, examine the coin closely under good lighting. Look for any unusual features. Are the letters sharp and clear, or do they appear doubled? Does the coin look perfectly centered, or is part of the design missing? Are there any cracks, bumps, or strange marks that don't seem normal? Using a magnifying glass can help reveal details that are invisible to the naked eye. Many collectors spend hours studying coins this way, searching for tiny differences that others might miss. Another key factor is weight and feel. While most 2006 pennies are made of zinc, counterfeit coins or altered pieces may feel different. A genuine coin should weigh about 2.5 grams. If something feels off, it's worth investigating further. You might be wondering why collectors care so much about such a common coin. The answer lies in the thrill of discovery. Anyone can buy a rare coin at an auction, but finding one in your own pocket change is a completely different experience. It feels like uncovering a hidden treasure that was there all along. There are also some fun and surprising details about the 2006 Lincoln penny that many people don't know. For example, billions of pennies are produced every year, yet only a tiny fraction ever become collectible. This means that even in a sea of identical coins, there's always the possibility that one stands out. Another interesting fact is that the Lincoln Memorial design on the back was nearing the end of its run in 2006. Just a few years later, in 2009, the U.S. Mint introduced new designs to celebrate Lincoln's 200th birthday. This makes the 2006 penny part of the final chapter of a design that lasted nearly 50 years. Collectors also love the connection to history. Even though the coin itself is modern, it carries the image of a president who shaped the nation during one of its most difficult times. Holding the coin is like holding a small piece of that legacy. Today, the 2006 Lincoln penny continues to attract attention from both new and experienced collectors. For beginners, it's an accessible entry point into the world of coin collecting. For experts, it's another opportunity to search for rare variations and high-grade examples. What makes it truly special is the idea that value isn't always obvious. Something as small and overlooked as a penny can hold hidden potential, waiting for someone to notice, so the next time you receive change at a store or find a coin lying around your house, take a closer look. That small copper-colored coin might not be as ordinary as it seems. It might carry a tiny detail, a subtle flaw, or a perfect condition that sets it apart from millions of others. And that's the beauty of coin collecting. It turns everyday objects into mysteries. It invites you to slow down, pay attention, and see value where others see none. Because sometimes the most valuable discoveries aren't locked away in vaults or displayed in museums. Sometimes they're sitting quietly in your pocket, waiting for you to notice. And who knows, your next penny might just be the one. Welcome back. Imagine picking up a simple penny from your pocket, barely giving it a second glance, only to realize later that this tiny coin could hold hidden details most people completely miss. Today, we're diving into the story of the 2018 Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary on the surface but carries layers of history, design, and collector interest that might surprise you. The 2018 Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint at the Denver Mint, which is identified by the small D Mint mark on the front of the coin. At first glance, it may seem like just another modern penny, something you might receive as change at a store. But like many coins, its true story goes far beyond its face value. To understand this coin, we need to step back and look at the Lincoln penny itself. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure. Over the years, the design has changed several times, reflecting different periods in American history. By 2018, the reverse side of the penny featured the Union Shield design, which was introduced in 2010. This shield represents unity and strength, symbolizing how the country held together during the Civil War. The year 2018 may not seem especially historic at first, but it represents a modern era of coin production where advanced technology meets traditional minting. The Denver Mint, where this penny was made, is one of the most active minting facilities in the United States. Millions upon millions of pennies are struck there every year, and in 2018 alone, the production numbers were in the billions. That might make you think these coins are too common to be valuable, but that's not always the full story. Now let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The front, or obverse, shows the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, a design originally created by Victor David Brenner. You'll see the word liberty to the left, the year 2018 to the right, and above it all, the phrase "In God We Trust." Just below the date, you'll find the small but important D mint mark, indicating it was struck in Denver. On the reverse, the Union Shield design stands tall. It features a shield with vertical stripes and a banner across the top that reads E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. Above the shield is United States of America, and below it, the denomination 1 cent. It's a design that combines simplicity with deep symbolism in terms of composition. The 2018 D penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper plating. This has been the standard since 1982, when rising copper prices forced the U.S. Mint to change the metal content. While it may not contain much intrinsic metal value, the craftsmanship and potential for minting errors make it interesting to collectors. And this is where things get exciting. Even though billions of these pennies were made, certain versions of the 2018 D penny can be worth far more than 1 cent. The key lies in condition and errors. Coins that are in pristine, uncirculated condition, especially those graded by professional services, can sell for several dollars, sometimes even more depending on their grade. But the real treasures are error coins. Occasionally, something goes wrong during the minting process. It might be a misalignment, a doubled design, or an issue with the metal planchet. For the 2018 D penny, collectors have reported examples of double die errors, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated. These errors can be subtle, often requiring close inspection, but they can significantly increase the coin's value. There have also been off-center strikes, where the design is not perfectly centered on the coin. These can range from minor shifts to dramatic misprints where part of the coin is blank. Depending on how extreme the error is, these coins can fetch anywhere from a few dollars to over $100 in collector markets. Real-world sales give us a better idea of the potential value. A standard 2018 D penny in circulated condition is usually worth just 1 cent. However, uncirculated examples graded at MS67 or higher have sold for around $10 to $50. Error coins, especially those with clear and noticeable doubling or striking issues, have been known to sell for $100 or more, depending on rarity and demand. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 2018 D penny? Start by checking the mint mark. Look just below the date on the front of the coin and confirm that there is a D. Next, examine the coin closely under good lighting. Look for unusual features such as doubling in the letters or numbers, uneven edges, or parts of the design that seem shifted or missing. Condition is also extremely important. Coins that have never been used in circulation, often referred to as mint state, will have a bright, clean appearance with no visible wear. These are the coins that collectors are willing to pay more for. If you think your coin might be special, you can have it evaluated by a professional grading service, which will assign it a grade and authenticate its condition. There's also the question of authenticity. While modern pennies are not as commonly counterfeited as older, more valuable coins, it's still important to be cautious. Genuine 2018 D pennies will have sharp details, consistent weight, and proper alignment. If something feels off, such as unusual weight or blurry design elements, it's worth taking a closer look or consulting an expert. Here are a few fun facts that might surprise you. The Lincoln penny is one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history, and it continues to evolve while maintaining its core identity. Also, even though pennies are often overlooked or even discarded, they are among the most widely collected coins in the world. People of all ages enjoy searching through their spare change, hoping to find something unique. Another interesting detail is that the Union Shield design on the reverse is meant to echo the design of the Great Seal of the United States. It's a reminder that even the smallest denomination carries national symbolism. And while many people debate whether the penny should continue to be produced, collectors see each new year as another opportunity to discover rare variations. Collectors today love the 2018 D penny not because it is rare in the traditional sense, but because it represents possibility. It's a modern coin that anyone can still find in circulation, which means the hunt is very much alive. Unlike older coins that are locked away in collections, this penny could be sitting in your wallet right now. There's also a sense of accessibility. You don't need a large budget to start collecting pennies. With just a little knowledge and a keen eye, you can begin spotting differences and identifying coins that stand out. For many collectors, it's not just about the money, but the thrill of discovery. As we come to the end, think about this. How many times have you ignored a penny, left it on a counter, or dropped it into a jar without a second thought? What if one of those coins had a hidden detail that could make it special? The 2018 D. Lincoln penny is a reminder that value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, it's hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone curious enough to look a little closer. So the next time you come across a penny, take a moment. Turn it over. Look at the date, the mint mark, the details. Because you never know. That small, ordinary coin might have a story worth far more than 1 cent.